welcome back to another edition of Scots and Socks, episode 5. Today I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Scotty Carson, and a special guest, Dr. Jim Skivalidis. Jim is a practicing kinesiologist and chiropractor and has been for a couple of decades now. So he started when he was 12, and he also founded the men's mental health foundation called I'm Just a Man, so which he's been running for like over 6 years now. So welcome, Jim. Today we're going to talk about Jim's experience walking the streets on Friday night with Scotty Carson and Sam, who we heard from yesterday. So I'll let Scotty Carson run the affairs from here because I wasn't there.
Look, next time you will be, so that's important. But first things first, Jim, thanks for coming on. I'm loving touching hearts with you. You and I are connecting on a level that I really enjoy connecting with people. It's something that's really special to me. I love what you do with I'm Just a Man. But before we go into...
I just froze.
He's frozen. He's never done that before.
I'm back. Scotty froze, yeah?
Yeah.
He's
I was
back.
about to say...
How's that internet connection? That was great, man. It was like my so kind of thing. It was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. I would love for you to share your journey. Yeah, your journey into dropping out, because that's what I just did. So, but your journey to become you, like, and why I'm Just a Man so important.
You want me to share that? Yeah.
I'll start there.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you to having a lovely chat with you first, Scott, on the phone yesterday. Great to meet you, at least online. I know we're going to catch up. I know that. And then it's been great to meet you as well through BNI, mate. So, yeah. So, look, I'm Just a Man is a charity that got created as an event, but been a charity about 4 years, as an event, say 7 years. Sort of was born out of my awareness around, as and I honor myself represented as a male, when my business burnt down, my chiropractic clinic burnt down. We had 9 years now in November. And I had a rude awakening, I think, of life. I was surprised by my own sort of, like thinking about, obviously I had thoughts of not sticking around, and they were real, but I didn't even realize that till at least probably 2 years plus after the event. And I think in having the chats with both of you guys, it's like I had a huge identity crush and crash. I say both. And, I think with me, I had a very strong connection. Maybe when I say material, it was more like, I was relating myself to a building and what that meant to me. But I began to understand mental health, even though I'm a person that's done a lot of progressive stuff over the years, around personal development. And when you go down to your lowest, I guess, I questioned my own life. Really, that's what it was. And then going through that journey, and then people in BNI suggested that I, and that was a great community for me, still is, that rallied around me, and that's why I do what I do. And I believe in it so much from that perspective, and it's a community in itself, and it keeps changing, as you know, Scott. In your little time, people come and go, but I think this message of allowing people to express permission, vulnerability is very powerful. So I've met a lot of people, obviously Movember, Beyond Blue, Are You Okay? Yourself, Lance, which is now Never Alone, Outside the Locker Room. And there's a theme, and I guess for me, because I took up music through a suggestion from someone from BNI, it was the passing of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington in 2017. I was finding an outlet for healing and expressing myself, and these people are passing away, and it's not an uncommon story and a sad one. I thought, I've got to do something with this. And so I'm Just a Man, which is actually not my name or anything like that. It wasn't some blokey thing that I felt or thought of in a pub, but it was a song title by In Excess. and it was Michael Hutchins' lyrics. And if you look at the lyrics, he's crying for help. And I've had conversations with his sister about it and Andrew Farris, who is the main songwriter of In Excess, about it. And it was Michael discovering his vulnerability. And I think even though that's 1997 or that was written 96, 97 or 95, I feel there's an empowerment. In the lyrics, it talks about, mother, father, brother, sister. And I think we all come from one of those, or we have challenges with one of those. And not that we'll have it figured out, because we can't tend to try to fix it as men, but more like there's this ongoing journey of that and how it relates not just to your own family, but brothers and sisters are your mates. They're the females that support the males, or it's your mate's brother or your mate's father or your mate's uncle. Like I saw this exploration of generations, and this mental health amongst what would have been our grandparents is different to what the parents are, to what's different, what's ours, to what's different to our children, to what's different to newborns, So there's this kind of awareness. I discovered the whole male suicide awareness, whether you're in Japan or Australia or South Africa or England, the stats are very similar. And it's like, what's going on here? I'm not laughing at it. It was just like, I tend to laugh at things when I'm trying to figure it out. It's like, that's crazy. So I just feel like I've found this journey of it. A lot of people, I've had friends of mine that don't understand it, I think, which I've shared with both of you. And I want to make a difference. So I've got a little boy and I want to make sure I leave a good will behind.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because they're topics, mental health challenges, as we were talking about yesterday, amongst men, is something that men are lacking a capacity to hold space for. I think in general, men come up short with their mates when it comes to getting around them when they're, surrounded by challenges, and that leaves us isolated and alone with our challenges, which is certainly not the intention of our mates, but it's kind of how we've been raised or the skills we haven't been given when our friends need us. So I think it's super important to not only speak about it, but also to make people feel comfortable at getting past that glass floor, as I call it, Jim, that men don't seem to be able to go below emotionally. We need to help men evolve and get to that point where they can, despite not having any good working examples of that in their lives today.
Yeah, I think males, and I said this, I don't want to have any intentions of men becoming females or women, nothing like that. It's just owning your authenticity, but it's creating the permission to find okayness in feeling vulnerable. That doesn't equal weakness or wussy and all those crazy words that have been used over the years. But it's okay to sit in it, And I still, even when I'm still a male, I still struggle at times, maybe because of the pride. There's the shame with it, guilty. But I actually, how I kind of tapped into that whole vulnerability thing for me was, there was a guy, Scott Carson. I think I shared this with you, but not you, Scott. But there was a guy called Andrew Griffiths who I'd seen on a stage in 2013. He's become a good friend of mine, and he's like a business consultant, but also helps people write books. And I saw him being very open and vulnerable. And around after the fire had happened, I sort of reached out to him. He didn't know who I was. I reached out to him. And he got me onto like reading about the power of vulnerability, Brené Brown. I just saw that power of that. Just saw the power of that. I think that's the strength is when you're holding space. It's the ability to go, okay, here's a safe space. You're not a wuss, and in that safe space, you share. You share the darkness. You share the low parts. You share those things that that. Inside of us, we have polarization, so that you okay it for it to come out. It doesn't mean someone has to fix it for you, nothing like that, but just to be heard. So I think it's
I think it's where guys have to be really careful. I mean, it's very easy to fall into groups that play the blame game and take accountability away from men, and there are plenty of them. And I think it's really important, critical actually, that we are very aware about places we can come and express our emotions, and not get embroiled. And I've certainly had that with friends of mine where external blame has been the focus of them to help me through something. It's someone else's fault. It's they're doing this and they're doing that to you, and it's not fair. All of that might be true, but none of it helps. So, I think it's really important that we are aware of those situations, because there's plenty around.
And I'll tell you one thing I feel comfortable doing, because the space that I'm, we say I'm just a man, is probably more in that sort of business owner space because of, say, BNI, and that's my main audience. But I do it because I'm still always working through stuff. I'm not perfect, but in any shape or form, but I'm progressed in the space. I'm not sitting where I was when the trauma happened. I'm wanting. I still look back and try to take responsibility. How did I contribute to my thoughts, my feelings? At the end of the day, that's the power I have, the choice of going, okay, what's the blessings of an experience, rather than do the blame game, because I don't think I'm going to get anywhere. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll do them. I can be human at times, fleshy. I call myself fleshy and blame, but you got to get past that point and go, okay, where am I contributing? Where am I taking responsibility here, where I can, drive it differently? If I'm in an environment where it's not serving me, maybe move away from that environment, So, but always, for me, when I look back, what sort of helped me the most, I mean, one was being vulnerable, but I think I've got different mentors. One of them being, say, Dr. John DeMartini. Was like looking at hidden blessings. Like I looked at my situation, what have I got, not what I haven't got. Probably a little bit of my growing up faith-wise, Greek Orthodox. Maybe I'm there's a bigger plan for me. When I mention that, not trying to be religious, but say from God being the grand order designer of life, whatever that is. And then, but a big part was Dalai Lama stuff, which was, compassion and kindness, when I go, like a really great example when we're walking on Friday night is, you had these people sharing this wisdom. They've got nothing, but they've got everything. It's crazy. But one guy I remember saying, was it Sharky, Scott?
Yeah, Sharky.
Yeah. It's just maybe nice people a bit more kind. It's like, that's the truth. That's the truth. When things don't go your way, we tend to snap at each other. It's like, be a bit more kind, be mindful, be more, try to demonstrate more compassion, rather than the big rope, the tug of war. It's a tug of war. Maybe let's hold it
that's
together.
That's a cue for you, Scott Carson.
Yeah, well, I think that's where Rocket came into his own. What was his comment? Oh, geez, I should know it off by heart by now, but I don't. No, I should, but I'm going to go to the phone. Don't choose your battles, because if you're battling, you've already lost, right?
Yeah, it was great.
And like
Rocket, that's right.
Been on the streets for quite some time, and I love that. But I'm just going to grab that comment by Jeff, please, Scotty. Please stick that up.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges for men is that there's hundreds of organisations where women can reach out for support, and there are almost none for men. And that is true. That is true. There is places, and we're learning to do it, but we're not investing in them. And investing in them is actually going to these places. I, for example, run a dinner for men in Frankston. And it was funny, when they were free, I was having 40 to 50 men come along, right? With no financial backer to support me. I've had to charge money for these dinners, and the numbers have halved. So what is it we need to do? And the key element for me in men's health is guided conversation, good food, and no alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're having conversations about life, and the big one for me is when we're talking about mental health, so much of mental health is a really dark conversation. We don't focus enough on the positives. Like there's the football, I think it's Norfolk. The two supporters sitting there. It's gone viral on LinkedIn, where the two guys are sitting there. The guy that he's sitting there, it's all frumpy, and and his mates there, all happy, trying to cheer him up, getting involved in it. And then at the end of the video, one of the guys isn't there, and he's putting a scarf on his seat to say, he's taking his own life.
Wow.
The reality is, you would have thought it was the guy that was unhappy, but it wasn't. Right?
Yes.
But they left it there. That's where they left the conversation. They stopped there. What if they took that and then did 10 years later, that guy actually went and got the help and worked on himself, and then 10 years later, they were back at the football together. He went and did the work, right?
Yeah, right.
Do the work, because that's what's missing. In men's health, we're not stepping into it, and that's only because it's not valued, right?
Well, I wonder, Scott, I've had this conversation before, I kind of wonder, in today's society, men are told very often how often we get things wrong. I think it was one of the only funny Dave Hughes jokes ever, that until he was in a relationship, he didn't realize how many things he was getting wrong in life. But we are often told that we're wrong, or that we're doing things wrong, or that we're not doing enough. And I think maybe one of the obstacles for men getting help is to tell them that, hey, there's more to do. You've got to do more. And I think, finding a pathway to feeling freer is probably more enticing than, saying, well, get to the grindstone, champ, you've got to do more, because I think men are already overawed by what's expected.
I think it comes down to a value proposition right there. Right?
Well, I think one of the things I think I've shared this with both of you. I got this great advice from Jerry McBain, who's from Movember. I'm not sure if he still is, but he was saying how he's got beautiful girls. They're born princesses, meaning that the beautiful girls are growing up as girls, and it was the guys he was saying, baby starts, baby cries, we lift them up, and then the moment it starts, boys don't cry. It's funny how that changes in the really early infancy period. But then it's like, in this era that we've got, I've noticed this, that if I express myself too affirmative, then I'm aggressive, right? And I'm like, all right. And then if I go too soft, you're a soft COCK. I won't say it, right? But it's like, there's this kind of identity thing that's happened that's very blurry for guys, I think, one. And you're right, guys, you need to do more, mate. It's like you're not doing enough. It's like you're a machine. Yep. You're a machine, man. You're a robot. Rather than acknowledging that you are enough, you're doing great. Maybe, that society is set up that way, and it's entered all into systems and legal systems and etc. But I think one of the things I found for me is, say, when I'm doing the charity stuff, the music's part of my sort of self-joy. So even though I'm doing that, I get a chance to sort of always bring in the mental health, but I'm still in joyous status. And sharing with people and going, hey, man, I want you to know I'm allowing myself to be emotional. I'm giving myself permission. Don't confuse my passion as anger. I'm allowed to express. I'm not throwing my fists around, for goodness sake. I'm just sharing how I feel, and I think that's a part I think it's important to have that breath of your own personal safe space. And sometimes we need to share it with people. That's what I'm doing. This is how I'm expressing myself. And I think it's really – sorry. Go. And I think just with what you're saying, Scott, and again, I'm just going with what I've seen over the last 7 years, having delved into Movember and all these other groups, I think there's definitely the space for the practitioner. We know, say the psychologist, counselor, blah, blah, blah. There's the awareness part. Say, what people, are you okay? I'm just a man, whatever else other people are doing. But there needs to be places, what you were saying. And I think Ray Bonney mentioned that to me, and it was like places where guys can go and just hang and express. And maybe we have elements of that with, which one's called the men's groups? What are they called again? Yeah, men's shed. I've been to a couple of those. but maybe something amongst something like that, but in a different capacity.
Yeah,
Where there is
mentioned
something.
it's an interesting concept. I think there was a Christian brother at my high school who told me in manual arts one day, I think it was woodwork, that I should go tie shopping. So it's not something I've been allured to.
Right, that's what I mean. Something with that has a bit of fun to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But I think one of the interesting things, and I think this is something for women to not just acknowledge, but be aware of in the first instance. For most of us, and I interviewed 100 guys last year, we know that what it is to be a man. We know what it's not, right? We know that it's not our dads or our granddads. So we know it's not that. We know that that's not the version we want to be. And we watched our mothers struggle with those versions, of masculinity, if you like. So we know it's not that, right? But we don't know what it is. And we don't know what the expectations are. And as they're defined by women, men stay silent often, even when they disagree, just to avoid conflict or the hassle, it might be said. And in doing that, the list of defining qualities of a good man or a good husband, they just keep going on and on. And I think for men, the big challenge now is, where are the boundaries? What am I prepared to call masculinity and what am I not? I think that's where we really struggle. And I think, we need help from our partners and our mates about what that looks like. Even simple things like, the symbolism of patriarchy and the stuff we grew up in and the misogyny that, we were raised by, right? I know a mate of mine's really serious about a girl if he doesn't talk about her in the bedroom. That's the first indicator, right? He respects her, right? He doesn't talk about any of the activities that go on. He doesn't describe her in that way. He doesn't. So she must be really important, right? And that's kind of how we know it's by what's not done or what's not said as opposed to what's said. So that's been my experience anyway. But Scotty, you must have more questions about Friday night.
I have a lot, but this is a good conversation, so I don't want to get out of it. I just want to grab.
Want to address any of Jeff's comments?
I just want to grab. In fairness, I don't think women are the best at providing valuable help either. Once it reaches a certain point, I agree with that. There needs to be huge steps forward for available support for all through Medicare and other organisations. It's interesting, right? Because how do we create places for men? How do we do that? Like I'm holding my first night for women in Frankston, which I am nervous about because I've opened up the floor about to have any conversation that they want to have. But it's going to come back to, what do you actually want from us men? What is it that you value in us men? I don't think
that's really important, mate. I really think that's important.
Well, I don't think we ask it enough.
So that's a big part of I'm Just a Man for me. It's motto is men and women side by side, but it's not to be told what a man is, though. It focuses around that the community has females besides the male that suffers or is challenged. That's where our focus is at. And then we end up having conversations about each other, which is what I think you're doing now. It's great. Yeah. It's not a man only, women also have their own challenges around mental health, but it's having these kind of, I feel with males there's the excess that perhaps happens. I'm in all sorts of minds with this idea of, I used to think toxic masculinity, right? And I'm like now going, well, masculinity is masculinity. Toxic behaviors is different. I think I'd rather say that. Toxic masculinity is like, oh, bad man suddenly. It's like bad behaviors. Man and woman have bad behaviors.
I got thrown out of International Men's Day's conversation because I ripped apart every single person who talked about toxic masculinity if they were male. I said, stop doing the easy sell and selling toxic masculinity, because it's really easy to pinpoint the negative. How about we focus on positive masculinity so we know at least what we're aiming for? What are our targets? And I'm going to be really rude for a sec, because just behind me is at at these dinners that I just love having with men, right? We discuss all kinds of wonderful things. What do men really like about women? There's only one thing that became everything was like a full can of peaches, which was you've got a full tin. You're full in yourself, and you've got more to offer. Supportive, inner strength, inner beauty, encouraging, a genuine smile, a cheeky smile. They can see the real you. Sense of humor, confidence in them, in their own skin. Right. Then the next question: what? This is guys talking about positive male traits. What are positive male traits? The ability and strength to overcome adversity, self-belief, allowing self to be vulnerable, stepping up to the challenge, being provider, non-judgmental, being a caring partner, self-acceptance, giving strength to others through empathy and sharing an inner journey, patience, being a protector, quiet confidence, good listener, being a role model / mentor, self-awareness, conflict management peacefully. These are the qualities that men believe are important to men. And I want to hear it from our women. So I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
Because how does that feel hearing that?
Yeah, well, it's true, but I think I want to touch on Jeff's point too, because it's very easy for us to drown in the popular narrative, and the way men are depicted in current society, in entertainment and so forth, which is Jeff's point. I think there is a name for it. It's not Fred Flintstone. It's I can't remember now, but I mean, if you compare Fred Flintstone to to Family Guy, or to Mr. Simpson from The Simpsons, Bart's dad, where men are depicted as useless, drunk, kind of layabouts, versus the old days where there was at least functional communication and engagement between man and woman. And sure, he was a bit blundery, but in the end, he was also seen as someone they could depend on. And so that narrative's really changed a lot. And I think that's worth us considering too, because the messages we hear out there, and this is why I think you'll see a lot of men's silence, right? We know the narrative is that we're the lesser sex these days, right? We're less capable. That's the narrative out there. And so even some of the stuff I see on LinkedIn is unbelievable in terms of the persecution of the modern man, based on the behaviors of our forefathers mostly. So, I think for men, this is a big barrier.
I'm going to jump on it because this is something that really gets up my goat, right? Because we're human first, right? Mm-hmm. Divine feminine, divine masculine together create these amazing things. Like it's just, I love women. Women add so much value to this. That, like, when you're loved by a woman, you can do absolutely anything, right?
That's right.
But when you're scorned by a woman, you can't move a grain of sand. You're done. You've got nothing left, because our hearts just go in there. And I think the ability to be able to express that, I am so excited about modern masculinity, because we're discussing it. We're trying to find it. We're looking at it. We're not just having it projected and sitting in it, right? You sit there and we talk about the way in which mass media has focused on men and focused on the toxicity of human behavior, right? The very fact that we're sitting here having a discussion about it, we're growing. We're listening to one another about what it is that we can do better. Yeah, am I wrong or right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And what it is we need to do.
Our fathers never did that, right? So we're learning. Yeah. We're learning. Like anything, when we learn to walk, we fall over a lot. And I think right now, with modern masculinity, I think it's an extraordinary time. I think it's wonderful.
Think about this is a good example. You see this with say school children. Say the girls are in a group. They all kind of gather in a big circle around each other, again, we're not trying to become like girls, that's what I'm saying, but they will talk whereas a guy might, if they're in a room, guys will take the corner, because that's my territory, right? So, and again, we can take certain behaviors, certain traits from each other, and that's what this is, right? Where we're almost gathering around the campfire, or even we're at the cricket together, watching a cricket, playing cricket, but we're not just having the BS conversations, we're going a little bit deeper. Like you said, I think something you said, Scott, yesterday on the phone, you say, you haven't got enough for me. And that really hit me between the eyes, mate. Like, and it's not an ego thing you're saying. It's like you're just owning it and saying, man, like, I don't want to just have, the Collingwood Carlton conversation or, Dan Andrews conversation. How about we go a little bit more like, what's really going on in your life? Oh, no, I'm all right, man. No, what's really going on, mate,
Yeah, that's right. And it's so very hard. As I mentioned to you yesterday, across those 100 interviews, couple of startling stats. I mean, 4 guys said they looked up to their fathers, and the other one that was really startling as a behavior was that the more grotesque the trauma, the more easily it fell out of people's mouths. But when it came to matters of the heart, particularly intimate matters, men went completely silent. They didn't give me anything. And it's like, I'll talk about the fact that Uncle Frank raped me when I was 6, but any insecurities in intimate relations? Oh, no. All good, mate.
Wow.
So, I think, that's a good example of where we, kind of fall short. But also, I want to reiterate that we don't really know. I've got a mate in Canada who says that men have lost self-respect. And I'm like, okay, walk me through that. He goes, well, we just keep giving because we don't know what to do, or we stop, right? Or we stop, right? And we don't give anything. So one of the two. But either way, we've lost self-respect. So in the latter, where we're not doing anything, we've lost our ability to sort of show up as our best versions. And in the former, where we're giving everything, we've lost the ability to feel truly valued for what we're contributing. So it's not to say that all men are trying their guts out, because they're not. But for those of us that have attempted that, it's like, well, where does this end? Like, what do I need to be? How do I need to show up? How do I, be emotionally supportive towards my partner? And, it's a great joke, and you see it on TikTok every time. You're not sharing your feelings enough, you're not expressive enough, you're not this, you're not that. And I think that's what you're getting at, Jim, when you're saying we're not trying to turn men into females, right?
No.
And I'd wholeheartedly agree that when you've got a guy out there saying, I'm a feminist because he's jumping the fence, I think that was your point, Scotty, it isolates men from that conversation, right? So, even things like, equitable leadership, and I'm waiting for the white people to get me now. There's not necessarily an agreement from men about that practice, but there's certainly no discussion about how they feel about it. Because why would you bring that grief on yourself?
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? There's a
have we even spoken about people in the streets today, or what we're supposed to? Yeah. Hey, when we put a subject matter up, guys, that's our objective, but we don't always meet the objective.
But we're still in the space, though. We're still having these real deep conversations. So yeah. But yeah, I'm happy to. Let's go back to that to Friday night for a moment. Like, I must admit that Scott obviously was showing. He was just being himself, doing it, and then kindly encourage us to do the same. And I was quite nervous doing my first one, and not that there's easy or less easy people to approach. I felt like I had an easier person perhaps to approach, and but I think when you present, if your intention's good, and you come across with your heart. And I remember the guy said to me when I was handing out the socks, and I don't know quite what I said, but I did say something like, this is a gift. There's no obligation. There's no, signing up anything. And he was a psychologist. Talk about fate. And he actually really appreciated it. And then Scotty and Sam came over. But yeah, it was like, again, it comes down to what Rocket said, is just approaching someone with kindness. Yeah. We have that thing with the males where we can get territorial and angry. It's
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that's something not to unlearn. I don't suggest any of that, but just to learn some different things around it. That's all. To be aware, I think. But yeah, it was that was a great experience. Even I think the big one there, I found the greatest challenge in that space is really, yes, there are people that are a bit more misfortunate or unfortunate. I don't want to put that with I don't want to be putting it down or anything like that. I'm just trying to express it the way I understand it. But it was one of the guys that Sam approached. He was probably a good-looking, well-to-do, probably successful man, and trying to break the conversation open. I think that was probably the toughest one that I saw on the night. And you had plenty of those yourself, Scott. The people like us, perhaps, that have a roof over our head or have a job, and it's that being able to crack those conversations open. I thought I saw some real value in that, not just from Friday night, but how do you do that ongoing, in a way that's not too disruptive, but disruptive enough to be kind with it. So yeah, that was a huge takeaway for me from the night.
Because it's pretty interesting. Because like I am a passionate man. And when it comes to the blokes not stepping into it, I step up a gear and like, no, this is important. Because the reality is most of the guys that you met on the streets, most of them have been like that at some point. Most of them have had the opportunity to be that, and they didn't get there. So they're the guys let's start having the conversation when things are good before they get bad.
Yeah.
Because so many people, like, everybody knows someone who's committed suicide.
That's right. Or they know somebody. It's more about also knowing somebody, or they've had it. Like the one that you gave socks to, and the guy came back from someone passed away from suicide. Yeah, like
it
doesn't get any more real than that. Yeah.
But here's the thing: we had that conversation. All right. Now Matt lives in my heart because he was able to share with me the story.
Yes.
He was able to share with me. Someone listened to him and his feelings about it.
Yes.
What I was most impressed with, like Australian culture, we celebrate and commiserate everything with alcohol. Right? That's just he was sober. This is a big experience in life, and he chose not to drink. He chose, I'm just going to walk. I'm going to walk tonight around Melbourne, and I'm just going to remember, what are the things we need to do? How can we make smarter decisions moving forward? And that's what this is about, right? Out in the streets, walking the streets, thanking people for doing their best. Just thanking someone. When's the last time you were actually thanked for something?
Yeah, it's so powerful.
That's a human need. It doesn't matter male or female. It's a human need. I don't think we have the time. I don't think we choose to use the time to thank each other anymore. To actually take that genuine appreciation and just go, do you know what? Thank you so much for being here today. Because you're here today, I've learned this. That's going to help my life because I won't do this anymore. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I get to hear people's stories from all walks of life.
Yes.
And I get to make better decisions because I've heard those stories. On Sunday just gone, I went to the church for the first time. Went to church. I listened to a service. And then I had the opportunity to talk. And
wow.
The Uniting Church in Frankston, Ross, the minister there, he comes to the dinners as Ross, not as a minister, as
That's
just
right.
a man, because he goes, where have I got? I've got nowhere. But I come to the dinners and I listen to everybody and I'm a part of that community. And it's such a sweet, sweet, sweet thing to do, But inside the congregation, I got that right, they did an acknowledgement to the country, and it was one of the best I've ever heard. It was brilliant due to the fact that, awesome, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Gary.
But the acknowledgement of the country was about elders and the wisdom within from those elders. And it was amazing. And I'm looking around the church and I'm going, I got to speak. And I'm like, do you guys all realize that you are our elders and that the wisdom in this room is extraordinary? And more than ever, we need it right now, because the wisdom we need to see is in your facial expressions on how to deal with situations, how to reflect. Life is this big mirror. Where are we getting our emotions from? Sitting here on video, it's fantastic. Sitting here on text, we're not getting them. Sending emails, we're not getting the tonality. We're not getting the depth, how close, how far away we are. If people have moved in, they're more interested in the conversation. They moved out.
Well, I mean, it's, whenever we've got problems, and this is true in the corporate world, if you've ever been in a culture where communication is done, via chats or emails or whatever, and almost exclusively via those channels, I'll show you a business that can't do strategy, because we actually need to engage with each other and have a conversation. We actually need to have a conversation about what's going on. We need to explore that face to face, or over the phone at least, right, before we can actually create a new reality. And that's true in all in all contexts, right? So same when people are troubled or whatever, they need to be in a situation where they can be heard and they can actually hear others' points of view as well dynamically, so that they can start to manifest something really different. But anyway, we are way over time.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to finish up with?
I do have a question though. Like I want to ask Jim, what, after running I'm Just a Man for 7 years, what do you want to see different? If you could change one thing in that space, what would it be?
Oh, mate, I think if I look, it's having, and I know it's in our sort of stuff I sort of look at, it's having ongoing conversations. It's not, and I know Are You Okay is not just one day, but having ongoing life conversations, number one. Number two thing I would change is to create experiences and events where you can have people have fun and share. I think that's key. So even though this is, my last gala for now, if there was a way of doing that on a smaller scale and having it everywhere all the time, not only in Melbourne, but around Australia and around the world, that would be great. Like, I think having ongoing conversations is important. That's the key thing. And not to create that division. It's not man versus woman.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It is most definitely not. I mean,
it happens.
Well, I will say that, I've got a podcast launching soon called Men, Women and Happiness, and it's not necessarily for heterosexuals. It's for, for anyone, really. But I mean, I think the purpose of that, for me, my experience is certainly as a bloke, right? So that's all I've got to offer. And I don't see men's issues as being solved by men exclusively. So, I sought out a female psychologist who works with men and that sort of thing, so I could get a different perspective, and we could actually see females in that representation coming to the conversation. And we don't talk about just men, we talk about men and women, but at the same time, the whole thing's about happiness, right? And, going right back to the beginning of the conversation when we talk about people just losing the will to go on, what is that really about? It's about not seeing a way forward. Yeah. So how is it that we get people a way forward? And, I think that's super critical. And it's not a one-man band, and it's not a one-sex show. It's something that we've got to do collectively.
Look at someone like Mick Jagger, right? He's almost 80. Does he have to perform for money? No. But he loves it. Paul McCartney loves it. Yeah, I know they're probably big, extreme celebrity examples, but these people just love what they do. Find something that you love to do forever. It doesn't have to pay you, something that you can work, and then do something that you love that gives you depth and meaning. I think with you, Scott, I could see you enjoyed going up to people in the street because you've had that life. So it's like, wow, you could do that till the day you go. You know what I mean? So,
whereas Jim and I are like, would you mind taking? We're not as fluent.
Matt, what would happen to the world if that was the case? If I was walking the streets, what do you think would happen to our community? What do you think would happen if I was walking the streets 7 days a week, touching hearts, letting people know it's okay to have dark days? What do you think would happen to our society, Jim?
Be amazing. I can see myself doing that with you again, mate. Like I didn't say that once off. I just started to apply it in different ways.
Personally, I think I shared it last night. I think, the experience you're offering there, Scott, is for people to let down their guard, take away their judgment, and sit with another person who we might otherwise walk past and recognize and acknowledge them and respect them as a fellow human being. And I think there's a lot of personal growth in that. There is for me, and I could see a program where that happens, albeit that you and I are both as critical as each other of programs that sort of walk around the streets and sort of, talk to homeless people like they're walking around a zoo. That's not what we're about. We're about genuine connection with people. But I do think there's an opportunity in that as an experience for people as leaders. So anyway, I'll anything else from you, mate?
I am going to grab that quickly. I don't know we're going to go, but one of the things that happened Friday night after you left, Jim, Sam and I kept walking. There's a young lady sitting there on her own, and you're into the energy world where you can feel her. Because of my life experience, I could feel that there's something wasn't right. So I went and sat with her, did the spiel, gave her a pair of socks. She was over here from Colombia, got stuck here through COVID, now doesn't know what to do. She was just on her own for the night. So we sat and we talked to her. We had a conversation. She felt better.
That's great.
If someone just said g'day, someone sat down and gave her the time. And this is a woman that has got a job. She's just stuck here because of circumstances, and now doesn't know exactly what to do.
Mm.
It's not just our homeless. It's a people that in a world that is so disconnected.
Right.
We're just trying to touch hearts to say, hey, I see you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So good.
On that note, I'll
on that note.
But I do want to say something, though, just quickly, and I know I just did, but
really, that's a new thing.
Thank you so much for your heart, Jim.
Thank you too, mate. Honestly, thank you both.
Like,
cheers, Jim. We really appreciate it.
The world's gotten a whole lot more exciting with you in my life, so thank you.
Oh, mate, it was. I can see more things happening, brother. All good.
Excellent, guys. Thanks everyone for listening. You will catch us next Wednesday, same time, same bat channel.
Jim, how do they get tickets?
Oh yes, quickly.
Oh, good point.
I have a gala coming up. It's a masquerade in 3 weeks. Go to Eventbrite. Type in "I'm Just a Man 7 the Masquerade." I'd love to have you there. It's a great night. We're actually very briefly again. Sorry, I know we've gone way over time. Okay, how do you stop these conversations? But just something that you said as well. Like in last year, it was a very heavy conversation night, and I knew that. It even happened online the year before. So this year we're going for big empowerment. So we are going to share some sad parts, but really be empowered. So I think, which is the positive in coming out on the other side, because that's how I've actually put on the gala. It's not because I'm in a flat zone. It's like I have my moments, like all of us, but I'm empowered. So I'm putting it on. So that's where the space we want to come from, and that's what we're doing and changing it right up for a big bang with unmasking with that sort of focus. But yeah, go to Eventbrite, go to I'm Just a Man, look me up on LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't mind. I love connecting with people. Thanks so much for today, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And as Scott would say, the problem is not the problem. The problem is how we react to the problem, and that creates the opportunity and the lesson. And there's something else, Scott.
Look, you nearly got it. Like
I nearly got it down.
The problem's not the problem. It's how you respond to the problem that either causes the pain, the lesson, the opportunity. Right? I hope we have the bravery to investigate the pain. Then we have the courage to find the lessons, and then together, let's find the opportunities, because that's when we really connect.
Excellent. Thanks,
Love
Scotty. Thanks, Jim. Great to have you on. Thanks everyone for listening. Cheers. And sorry we went so over.